T-shirts at the booth if you'd like to go get one. Stop by the booth. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start, and as people decide to come by, then we can kind of go through it. First of all, I'm going to give you kind of an overview of who Varonis is. Have you guys heard of Varonis? You know who the company is, what we do? So
I had.
Okay, so Varonis was founded back in 2004. We started actually operations in 2005. We're currently, we have just over, this is an outdated slide, we have over 2,000 customers worldwide with over 5,500 installations. So the slide's a little bit outdated. We have offices on 6 continents around the world, and we're based on a patented technology of helping you understand really the analytics of what's going on with all of your semi-structured and unstructured data. We help you understand who has access to your data, who's been accessing your data, exactly what's going on with each piece of that semi and unstructured data so that you have a better understanding of how people are using it. When you start thinking about data, data in general is something that's difficult to really manage and maintain because unstructured data is created by your users. When your users create the data, you don't know what they're creating, you really don't know where they're storing it. You think you have policies, you have procedures, you have training to help them understand where they should be putting the data, but they're not always storing it where it's supposed to be. Many companies we talk to say, well, all of my data is in a secure database. The reality is that they take the data out of the database to massage it, and then they put data back in the database. What about the stuff they took out? It's not gone, it's still there. It's in unstructured data areas. Your sensitive data, social security numbers, credit card numbers, PII, PCI, HIPAA, SOX, ITAR, all the different regulatory compliance requirements, all that data that's sitting out there, now you've got data sitting out there that is at risk. Okay? According to really looking at some of the major companies that look at this, the industry analysts, they come back and they tell you that over 650% growth in your data over the next 5 years, and when you start looking at it, it's really focused around that unstructured data. All the stuff that's out there that people are generating and creating every day to do the jobs that they need to do. The issue with that is as you start working with that, the more data that you have, the more collaboration, the more cross-functional teams you've got. That means that you've also got more containers, more ACLs, more management, more headache. You've got more things that you've got to try and manage with less staff. 91% of the companies out there that have been interviewed have said they do not have the proper processes in place to determine who the data owners are. Think about it from this perspective. Does IT really truly know who's supposed to have access to what data? No, they don't. It comes from the business. The business has to be involved to validate that who you think should have access is getting the right access. The business is the one who's going to decide for IT who should be getting to what piece of data and using what data at what time. 76% of the companies that are out there are unable to determine who can actually access unstructured data. The reason for that is that groups, we try to migrate to a better control by saying, let's put all of our users in groups, and have those groups have access to data. That way I know they're getting to the right stuff. The problem is that the group started off with access to one folder. Then all those people need access to this too, so let's give it access to a second folder, or a third folder, or a fourth folder, and now suddenly you go to drop someone in a group and you don't know exactly what you're giving them access to. You have a general idea, but the amount of work and effort required for you to dig in there and see exactly what that group's giving access to at this point is very difficult. And it's common across all organizations across the United States. You see this in all of our different companies and customers that we work with. So as we look at this, the biggest problems that we face today are really IT being able to answer these core questions. Who has access to this data? Who's been accessing the data? Just because you have access, are you actually using it? Are you actually out there touching that data? What data is sensitive? How do I fix it? And most importantly, where do I begin? How do you start cleaning up this mess that's out there? You know what's got to be done, but you have limited resources, you have a limited budget, you've got to try and get all this under control, do more with less. How? What are you going to do? So according to Forrester, 22% of the companies in the United States have reported data breaches. The other 78% have not admitted it yet. The reality is that every company has data breaches on a regular basis. On average, they're estimating $7.2 million per breach of the reported breaches that have been listed and documented. So start thinking about that when it comes to your data. Could your company afford to lose $7.2 million because somebody got a hold of data that they shouldn't have and took advantage of it? Okay? Now, the most interesting data leaker that you're going to find is going to be someone inside your company, a trusted insider. When we say a trusted insider, think of the WikiLeaks situation. What did Private Manning do? He took a bunch of data and he sent it off to an outside organization. Now, how did he get to that data? Did he steal a password? Did he break into a secret room? Did he hack into the back door of a system? No, he had the access. In your career, how many users have ever come up to you and said, you know what, I'm done with this project. Would you take away my access? I don't need it anymore. It doesn't happen. People don't do that. They don't actually think about that. And more importantly, if they did come to you, what is the typical answer given by IT? All right, I'll get to it as soon as I can. Reality is, as soon as I can, never materializes. You've got too many things on your plate, and that's a low priority for you. So as you start thinking about this collaboration, being able to share the data, making sure people have access to the right stuff, they're using the right data, you're able to get out there, but if you have no access, if you lock it down, you really have no collaboration capability, you have no value. You can't do anything with it. You've got to be able to share the data, but it needs to be secure. So a lot of companies will take it to the extreme. They give too much access, they'll just open it to everybody. So let everybody have access, and we know that they'll be able to get to what they need. The problem is they're getting to things that they don't need access to. The proper thing is to bring it back to that center line and say, okay, we've got the maximum value because we've got correct access, correct auditing. We're making sure that the right people are getting to the right data. To get to that data, how do you better protect it? Well, first of all, making sure you have authentication. That the users are who they say they are. They're validated. We know that they're able to get to the stuff they need to get to. We have authorization. We know that what they're getting to is something that has been approved. Someone has went through and said, yep, this person should have had all this access. They should be able to get to that data. It's okay if they see it. Finally, doing auditing. Looking at it, making sure that what was okay a month ago is okay this month, or okay a quarter ago is okay this quarter. Do you guys currently have regulatory compliance requirements of any kind? Okay. So when you do those audits, those entitlement reviews, how often do you do them? Yearly. Okay. So are there changes throughout the year? Never. The problem is when those changes are taking place, do you know when someone's doing something that they shouldn't? The ultimate question to ask yourself, if you can answer this question with absolute certainty and an absolute yes, then you don't need a solution like this. Okay? The question is, has anybody ever walked out of your company with data that belongs to your company that's sensitive without you knowing? If it's a yes, you're in trouble. If it's a no, and you know for certain no one ever has, you don't need any solutions like this. The reality is, no one can really say without some type of automatic monitoring, really, who's doing what with data. Okay? So the alerting functionality that we offer in here, we kind of jokingly refer to this as our early warning detection system for employee resignations. Think about when somebody leaves a company. What do? They delete a bunch of data, they'll download a bunch of files to a USB stick, they'll send a bunch of stuff to a private email address, they'll delete a bunch of emails, they'll do things that you probably don't want them to do. But has anybody ever downloaded massive amounts of data off of your systems? You don't know. We can tell you. Okay? We see every single file touch. When access is controlled, monitored, and most importantly, the activity is flagged. When you see unusual activity, how do we determine what's unusual and what's usual? Every user touches data pretty much the same way every day. What I mean by that is you may open 50 files today, have 80 tomorrow, 100 the next day, but over time you build an average number of file touches. When you do that, what we're looking for is 3 times your daily standard average number of file touches. When you exceed that by 3 times, we're going to send out an alert and say, hey, something's going on that's not normal for this user. Okay? The most common thing is suddenly somebody starts downloading a mass amount of data, and then a week or 2 later they resign. Well, we've caught that. We've actually got a customer in the South that was involved in a bit of a problem down there next to the coastline. I won't mention who they were. But that customer wanted to find out who is actually the person responsible for concrete and whether or not it's sealing things properly. Well, that company and their customer were looking at who's got this information. As they started digging through their data, they started looking through our logs, and they found that there was a mass amount of deletions on anything to do with the word cement in it. People were deleting all kinds of things. Well, without our software in place, no one would have ever known. Who would have had any idea that they were deleting all of that sensitive information that proved that they knew more than they said they knew? Okay? When you think about permissions, you think about what people have access to. What our software does is we give you what's called a complete bidirectional visibility into permissions. What I mean is from your data set to a user and group, which is one direction, and then the other direction from the user and group back to your data set. If you double click on a data set, any Windows, Linux, Unix, SharePoint, Exchange, Directory Services, any part of your data, you double click on it, on the left-hand side of our window, you're going to see all the groups and users that have access to that data. When you go the other direction, you double click on a single user or a group, what you will see not only on that single data set, but across every data set on that server as well as every server we're monitoring, you'll see exactly what that user has access to, as well as under the explanations column, which is not showing on this drawing, but under an explanations column, it actually tells you where those permissions came from. So now we can show you with one click of a mouse exactly what someone has access to and what groups are giving access to what data, what users have access to what data across all of your systems. Okay? We allow you to also see in here with our data classification engine where all your sensitive data is at. So by finding and identifying where your sensitive data is and then identifying who has access, we take it to the next step after that and say, okay, here's the people that are actually using it. That are touching that data, that are opening the files, copying the files, moving the files, whatever the case is. From there, with this complete audit trail, I can show you every single file touch. With the audit trail, you may have tens of thousands of line entries per day for each of your different systems. It's kind of hard to search all of that. If somebody comes to you and says, well, I want to know exactly what Alan Carey did in this folder on these 3 dates a year ago. I'll get right on that. Well, with our system, you can quickly identify any one of these column headings can be dragged up to this line, and it sorts and searches all the data so that as you do that sorting, it'll now show you, here's all of your accesses, your adds, your change, your move, your deletes, all of your different actions, your events that are taking place with all of your data across any one of your systems, your email, or anything else that's out there. Think about it like this. When we say we can show you everything that's going on, think of some of your more specific systems. When you think about Exchange, who has delegate access to your executives' mailboxes today? Do you know?
Has what?
Delegate access to your executives' mailboxes today. Do you know where to find it? There's only one place to find it. It's in their Outlook client on their desktop. How many employees are in your company?
170 plus.
How many are in your company?
170 plus.
So the same company. Okay. So 170. So if you wanted to find out who had delegate access to all the mailboxes in your environment, you'd have to go to 170 desktops. With our software, you can see it in our software. We actually had a customer that's got just over 2,500 employees, and we asked during our final evaluation meeting with them, we sat down and they had their chief legal counsel in the room. We asked that he attend because we figured it was pretty powerful information we were about to show them. We said, do you know how many people have delegate access to your mailbox? He said, yes, I do. There's 4 people. Are you sure there's only 4? Absolutely. It's only 4 people I've allowed to have access. Because over time I've had other people, but they were removed. I said, okay, who removed them? Well, I'm assuming IT did. Says, how often do they visit your office? I don't know. Every once in a while. I said, okay. Today there are 160 people that have delegate access to your mailbox. Of over 50% of that number are actively viewing your email. Were you aware of that? The guy about fell out of his chair. We can show you every single file touch. I can send you alerts and let you know when someone's going to someone's mailbox that's not their own. We can alert you when someone's going in and making changes. If you have admins that are going in and adding themselves to a group, doing something and removing themselves from a group, we'll see all that actions. The problem is under the Microsoft world, when you're making those changes, if you do it fast enough, Microsoft doesn't record it. It's too quick. They're limited to the amount of events they can collect in an hour. We collect every single event. We're a real-time event collection. We collect every single event, and we'll make sure that you know when people are making changes inside your environment.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So you're not just reading Microsoft event logs?
No. We have our own agent that gets loaded out there. We found very quickly that most of the event logs off of Microsoft, off of Linux, Unix, SharePoint, Exchange, are not that accurate and not that detailed. There are limitations to what all the different products out there can offer, so we built our own agents. Our founders came from NetApp. We've actually helped EMC and NetApp build monitoring systems around their different storage environments that allow us to collect the data and bring it in and show it to you. The metadata is out there. You just have to know where it's at and how to get to it. We do. Okay? So, as you start thinking about DLP, are you guys running any type of DLP solution? Do you know what a DLP is? Data loss prevention. What these solutions do, this is going to help you find all of your sensitive data that exists out there. The problem with a DLP solution is exactly what this CSO stated. Yesterday, I had one problem. Where is my sensitive data? I don't know. I know it's out there in my unstructured data areas, but I don't know what folders it's in and so on. I got a DLP solution and today I have 193,000 problems. Because I found my 193,000 pieces of sensitive data, and now how do I control it? How do I know what to do with it? How do I know who's really using it? So, along with finding your sensitive data, along with showing you the permissions, along with showing you who's been accessing your data, we also now will start providing you recommendations. What I mean by that is, as I mentioned, you touch data pretty much the same way all the time. So we can look at a group, the group finance group on the finance folder and say, okay, we noticed that Alan and Allison and Andrew and the others with no red X's, they use that data regularly. But Andrew and Christy and Eugene and some of the others with red X's next to their name, they don't touch the data. They have access to it, but they never use it. So we're recommending that they be removed. The problem with that is if you take that person out of there, do you know what you're removing their access from? You know the finance folder, but what else? Are there other folders? Is there other data? So part of what you're able to determine is if you double click on this person's name, what it will show you in the center column, it will put a red X next to everything that person will lose access to across every server and every piece of data in your environment that we're monitoring. So now with one double click, I can see if I take Andrew out of this group, is he going to lose access to the sales data he needs, or the other data, marketing data, or some other department he moved to, is he going to lose access to what he needs to continue doing his job? Does that make sense? Now, we can help you find who your data owners are. You only have 174 people, so it's not horribly difficult to find it, but if you find a folder out there that has kind of an ambiguous name, like DSR or B4, do you know what's in that folder? Do you know who owns it? Do you know really what it's being used for? No.
Unless you look.
Even if you dig into it, you may not know exactly, and by seeing who has access to it, that doesn't really tell you who's the owner, who's responsible for that data. So I'll make a statement. You tell me if you agree with the statement. Just because someone is the biggest user of data doesn't naturally mean that they own it. But if they are the biggest user of that data, they more than likely are either going to work with or work for the individual who is ultimately responsible for it. Would you agree? That being said, if they're the biggest user of the data, we like to say we can get you within one phone call of your data owner. You can call that person and say, okay, I noticed, Ann, that you're the largest user of the data in the finance department. Are you responsible for all that data? She says, no, it's not me, it's Andrew Carlisle. Well, great. Andrew's the next biggest person that's the user. I can right-click on any one of these pie charts here, or I can right-click on the folder, and I can make that person a data owner. Now, what does that do for you? It doesn't do anything to your data. It doesn't change any permissions or access or controls or anything else. All it does is puts a marker in our database. When it puts that marker in our database, now you can set them up with automated entitlement reviews, automated reports that go out to these people on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever is appropriate. You send a report to them that says, here's the people who have access to the data you're responsible for. Here are the people who have been using the data you're responsible for. Is that correct? Make sense? Now, as you start looking at this, really what you want to try and do is you want to improve security with your automation. So when we start thinking about improving your security with automation, your data is accessible only to the right users. You have access that's reviewed regularly. You're able to identify who your data owners are. You're able to create permissions reports for those data owners to make sure they understand who has actually got access to the data they're responsible for. Because in that audit, who signs that document? The person that's responsible for it. So if they're signing off, shouldn't they know who actually has access to it? Okay? We make sure their user access is audited continuously. It's an automated process doing that auditing, and it alerts you when there's anomalous behavior. We make sure that we have an analysis of all of your data on a regular basis to make sure that there's recommendations provided to you and those data owners, letting you know when there's changes that should be made. And then finally, unused data is automatically moved and deleted. What do I mean by that? We have a product called the Data Transport Engine. The Data Transport Engine is a rule-based data migration solution that allows you to go out and say, okay, if data is over a certain amount of age and it's not been used, get it out of my live production disk. Because how often do you go to your bosses and say, I need to add more disk? And they say, well, justify it. Tell me why we have to keep adding. Why can't we get rid of some of this data? Well, the answer is typically, well, I can't get rid of it because I don't know what it really is truly stale. Most products that look at stale data look at one key indicator, the archive bit. Has it been flipped, yes or no? The problem with that methodology is if you look at the archive bit and you have backup software or antivirus software or data management software or any other type of software that regularly looks at it, it flips the archive bit and it looks like it's active. The problem is it's not active. The underlying metadata that exists around that storage environment allows us to see exactly which data was last touched by a human user. I could load my software in your environment today and tell you back to the inception of your data, not the server, but the data itself, the last time a person actually touched it. Not an automated system account, a person actually touched it. That is pretty powerful. It gives you the ability to go out there and say, okay, I know our data retention policy says we need to hold on to stuff forever. Okay, but no one has touched this data in 5 years. So it's probably safe to say we can archive it or move it to secondary or tertiary storage, get it out of this expensive live production disk, and now I don't have to go back and buy that expensive disk anymore. I can buy tapes or I can buy other secondary storage that is a lot less expensive, spend less money, and achieve a lot more. Make sense? Now, with the data transport engine, what we do is we automatically identify this based on the rules you build, and we move it for you. We leave stub files behind that allow your data to go in at any point, click on one of those files, they think the data is still there, it redirects them to that new location. If that data is something that you don't want them to be messing with, you just want to know if they need it, it will redirect them and pop up a message and tell them, hey, if you need access to this data, contact the help desk, contact this person, call this number, whatever the case is. Make sense? Now, we've talked about data security, permissions, data owners, really understanding some of the back ends of it. But the reality is a lot of the data that you work with has to be shared and collaborated with throughout your entire organization. You've got to be able to go out there and let other people see what data you've got, share the data with people. In your organization, do you guys share data with external partners and external customers?
Yes.
Do you ever use Dropbox willingly?
Not willingly. We use a share file,
Okay.
which is similar, but not.
Cloud-based?
It is
Who's controlling the security on that?
me,
Okay. Who's really controlling the security on that?
Citrix.
You don't know. It's in the cloud. How do you know who's actually touching that data? In the last, first of all, the cloud explosion. Right now, Dropbox is saying that they have over 100 million customers. The unique thing about that is that over the last 2 years, they've published twice that they've allowed all 100 million customers to have access to everybody else's data for 72 hours or more before they realized what had happened. Those are published. How many times has it happened that they didn't publish it? When you think about it, 80% of the companies that are out there today don't allow cloud-based file synchronization. 14% are satisfied with the controls that they provide. 6% are not satisfied, but they don't really have a choice. They've got to do something. Okay? So, when you think about it, why not do it? Well, you've got risk, you have limited control over it, and the complexity of that environment. Do all of your users have the ability to get to it? Do they understand how to get to it? Do they know what data should be sent out there and what shouldn't be? 1 in 5 employees use Dropbox across all the companies in the United States today. 1 in 5 use Dropbox. Knowingly or unknowingly, they're using it. Okay? When you think about that, what can you do? Well, they want it. They want to be able to share the data. They want to be able to go out and have the accessibility. They want to be able to use it on their iPhones, their iPads, their Android phones, their tablets. They want everything. They want, here's my device, make it work, IT. The reality is that's very complex. So what are your options? Well, first of all, are you prepared? Do you really understand the complexity of what you're dealing with and how to actually properly protect yourself? You've got to have classification of all of the information. You've got to understand what data is sensitive, what data should be shared where, who should have access, who's using what, how is it actually managed. When you look at your data and you're trying to figure out what solutions out there, you have to understand, do you have to move your data? If you have to move your data, that's problem number 1. Because you start moving your data, now you've got multiple copies of data. So if you're pushing data out to the cloud to allow people to collaborate, how long is that data out there before it's no longer valid? Well, by the time you're done copying it, it's probably not valid because there's a more up-to-date version somewhere else. With Varonis, we offer you a solution called Data Anywhere. Data Anywhere allows you to share with your iPhone, your iPad, your Android phone, your Android tablet, your Macintosh computers, your Windows computers, laptops, desktops, it doesn't matter. You can share your data. I can choose what data to share with what customer, wherever, whenever I want. Okay? The nice part about it is if I have, we were just talking to one of the ladies out here that's actually from the FBI, they share sensitive data with a group of individuals, but they don't want those individuals to share that outside of that community. The problem is, how do they control it? I asked her, I said, how do you control it? She goes, I don't. Once they get it, they can do whatever they want with it. I can't stop them. Now, they're told not to. They're threatened. If they do, it's, a federal offense. But reality is, how do you know what they're doing? You don't. With the Data Anywhere solution, your existing infrastructure, your existing permissions, your existing data, your existing users, everything exactly the way it is, you've already worked to get all of that security the way you want it to be. We front end that and allow you to share it on any one of your mobile devices. So it's a matter of grabbing your device, bringing up Data Anywhere, and now you can share and collaborate data with anyone. If I want to take and share data, my administrator chooses what data I can share on what device. I can synchronize to what device. So I personally have an Android phone, I have an iPad, and I have my laptop. The administrator chooses what data can be synchronized to my phone, what data can be synchronized to my iPad, and what data can be synchronized to my laptop. As I go through that, and I start looking at all the different data and all the different functionality that's out there, you've got the ability to go out here and really take a look and understand when we start talking about the regulations, talking about the regulatory compliance. It's different everywhere you go. If you start working with international organizations, whether your company is or not, you still have to adhere to those international regulatory compliance requirements if you're sending product to customers outside the United States. So, do you know every country and every regulatory? Well, no one does. No one knows them all. People know specific to what they're working with. So really what you're trying to figure out is how do you get the right data stored in the right place? How do you collaborate with the right stuff? With Data Anywhere, we give you the capability to actually take that data and send out a link. I can send you a link to a single file. You're able to get that file, download it, look at it, or you can look at it online. If you don't want a client loaded on your phone or your laptop or whatever, that's fine. I'll let you look at it online. You can't download it, you can't print it, you can't screen capture it, but you can handwrite it down. I can't stop that. So that's always going to be possible. But the nice part about it is you have a much better control over your data. You can choose what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, and you're going to prevent people from stealing your data or using it inappropriately without having some knowledge of what's going on with your data. That make sense?
So if you had I'll just throw this, let's say a network diagram, and you got a vendor that needs to take a look at it to see what he's going to do, but you don't really want him to take it, print it out, and have it forever. You send it, you can send him a link to that PDF or whatever. He can look at it on his screen, but he can't print it out and save it for later.
Right.
Okay.
So I'll kind of give you a little bit of an idea here. This is my Data Anywhere client. When I go in here, I can look at my settings and see that I've created different what we call workspaces. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it Bubba, you can call it Test, you can call it anything you want. The workspaces are pertinent to you. To make a workspace, you must have an online account, or you have to have a client loaded that's bringing these workspaces to your local machine. From there, you can also go in and take a look at what is called your Data Anywhere account. When we talk about your Data Anywhere account, and hopefully my internet's going to work well enough in here, this is sitting on our server for Varonis. Our corporate headquarters is in New York, so this is sitting on our servers in New York. I'm actually reaching out and touching those, and here as a user, I have the capability of coming in here and saying, okay, I want to create a new workspace. When I create a new workspace, I click OK. It creates it, and then asks me, do you want to create or add folders, data that's going to be in this workspace? I can say add it in. At that point, what the IT department has done is they have chosen off my servers. No agents are loaded on your servers. No information is actually connected to your servers. We have one server in your environment that has 3 components on it. Something called a sync worker, a sync manager, and an edge server. Let me pull up a quick document to show you what I'm talking about here. So when we think about this environment, what we're talking about when we go through Data Anywhere, let's go to here. So the way it works, we have sync workers that communicate through sys and NFS back to your servers. Windows, Linux, NAS, whatever is out there, where your data is sitting that you're going to allow people to collaborate from. Okay? The sync manager communicates with directory services. We also allow you to do two-factor authentication with the RSA Secure ID or some other third-party authentication solution on top of AD. But all of your existing users, if I as a user am in your AD environment and I cannot get to Linux, it does not matter if I have Data Anywhere, I'm still not going to be able to get to Linux because AD says I can't. That's my normal access. You've set it up, that's how I can get the stuff. I can get the Windows stuff, but I can't get the Unix and Linux stuff. Data Anywhere is not going to let me in. If I have, let's say there's 3 folders on this server. Of those 3 folders, you only allow collaboration to one of them. Even if I have access to all 3, it doesn't matter when I go into Data Anywhere. The only one I'm going to see is the one you told me I'm allowed to see. Okay, so you control what people can see, what they can get to, how they can use it. The last piece is the Edge server. What the Edge server does is allows you to connect through HTTPS port 443 over to any of your mobile devices, laptop, desktop, tablet, whatever. You're able to share it over here. And you can also do it with a client out to any device that we have the clients loaded. So if you have an Android device, go to the Google Play Store and search on Varonis Data Anywhere, and you'll find our client. If you have an iPhone, search on the Apple Store, you'll find the Varonis Data Anywhere client. So from the web, when I'm looking at any one of these, I can go into here, and on the right-hand side, if I want to load the client, I can. It's available right there. So if I don't have the client loaded, and I'm only connecting via the web, but I want to get more functionality, I want to be able to synchronize data from the environment down to my computer, well, I've got to load the client to do that. Okay? Once you have the client in place, I have a lot of control over your device. Because now, if you are no longer collaborating with me and I decide, okay, any data that you synchronize, I want to get it back, we can do a remote wipe. Reach out to that device and get rid of it. Now, most MDM products, mobile device management products, when they do a remote wipe, they wipe out everything. Well, this is not Varonis' phone. They didn't buy it, I did. I own it. I don't want them to wipe out all of my kids' pictures and all the other stuff on here that's personal. It's mine. I don't want them to wipe it out. Well, what the Varonis product does is it only wipes out the stuff that was synchronized from Varonis to this product, to this actual device. So it won't wipe out everything. We're not like most MDM products. We don't wipe out everything. We only take what you said was synchronized to this device, or what the system knows was synchronized. Okay? So as you're looking at this, and you're looking at your folders, you'll notice there's some icons on here. First of all, is this in my workspace? Have I added this folder to the workspace that I'm getting to add stuff to? If I check any one of these folders, I can go in and check as many as I want, and then I can go in and add it to my workspace. So it's add files and folders to my workspace. Any one of them that you see here with the external collaboration, those are the ones that allow me to collaborate with someone outside of the company. What I mean by that is this. It's kind of hard to see it on this wall, but see how this is a box with the arrow going down? Right here, there's a box with an arrow going up that's grayed out. What that means is this is your upload, this is your download. So in this folder, the IT public folder, I actually have the capability to download data. If I go into systems engineering, I know there's other ones in here, you'll notice here we've got an upload folder and we have 2 different download folders. The admins have said this data will allow you to send a link to an external party to allow them to download data that's in this directory. This folder, we're going to allow you to send a link to somebody to allow them to upload data to you into that folder. You cannot upload data anywhere else. Now, what's the capacity? If someone has to upload a big file to you, how do they do it today?
We use that share file. We send them a link requesting that they upload it, and it creates a secure connection so that they can upload. Okay, so that's the ease of it, and that's the ease of this as well. Basically what happens is when you do it, and I'll show you how it actually works, if I go and say I want to allow someone to upload a file, it's as simple as, I'm going to go back to my space over here, I go into SE Info, here's my external upload. When I do this, you'll notice that now I have a thing that says send link. So when I go to send the link, I can choose whether this link is going to be an upload link, and then whether it's a public or a private link. What's the difference? Well, a public link means that if I send the link to you, you can then send the link on to anybody else that you want, and they can upload data as well. If it's a private link, I can send the link to you. You cannot forward it to him. You can't even forward it to yourself at the same address, or to any other email address, because the link will no longer work.
the secret sauce that we provide knows that it's not you, or that you tried to send the link on. So even if you send it to yourself, it's not going to let you do it. It's going to know that, nope, sorry, you cannot forward this on to anybody. So it's a private link. We allow you to let it be a perpetual link, or so they can actually have the ability to go out there and say it's going to, that link will expire after a week or a day or whatever. So you choose to say it's going to expire. I'll say this one's going to expire today. And then from there, I can choose who it's going to go to. And then I say, okay, here is your upload link. Enjoy. So when I do that, immediately it shows you this is the link that's actually being sent to the user. You can copy that link, do something with it, share it, whatever you want to do with it. You can send it out via email, but it's already been emailed out to that user. So give it a second, my email will synchronize and bring up my link. Oh, you know what? I don't think I have my email running. Bring my email up. Synchronize here. So there's my link, and it says, okay, here's your upload link, enjoy. You've received a private link after you access it the first time. It's going to send you a PIN code. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and go to the link. When I go to the link, it says, okay, supply the PIN code. Well, hold on, I don't have a PIN code. Well, here's the PIN code. It gets emailed to you immediately after clicking that link. I grab that PIN code, right-click, copy, put that in here. Now, I can upload data into this folder. Okay? But here's the unique part about this. If I go out here and I select the file that I actually want to load, I say upload it into this folder. It's uploaded. It's done. Just put that out there. I can't do anything with it. I can't click it. I can't change it. I can't do anything with that file. Can't delete it. Nothing. Because I have no access to that folder. I was allowed to put something in it, but once it's there, it's there. I can't change it. So it prevents someone from saying, well, I sent it to you. Well, no, it's not there. If it's not there, you didn't send it. If it is there, you sent it. And you can't change what you sent to me. Okay? But you'll notice that I can't see anything else in that folder. If I go back over here and I go in that external upload folder, you'll see there's all kinds of data in there. There's 3 pages worth of data. They can't see any of that. Okay? So if I go back here and I say, okay, well, I want to let somebody download a file. So if I go out here, you can see all these have download capabilities. So I'll go to external. I say I want to allow them to download this particular file here. So I go up here and I say send link. Same difference. Download link, private. It's going to expire today. Choose today's date. And here it is. Click send the link. You see that it's coming in. Here's the email saying, here it is. I click the link. Same premise. It'll send me a PIN code to put in there. So I'm waiting for the PIN code to come in. Takes a few seconds. There's my PIN code. I drop in my PIN code. And now I can see the one file, but all these other files are in there too. I can't see those. I can't upload anything. I can't do anything else with anything else. I can download. I've been authorized to download that file. I can do whatever I want with that file, but that's it. So you can choose what data is sent, where, how it's sent. And the nice part about it as an administrator, when you're looking at the system, if I go back here, and you look at the top, it also says shared links. This shows me the links that I've sent, but as an administrator, you get to see the links that everyone has sent. So you know what data was synchronized and shared with who. So you know before it goes out who shared data where. Make sense?
And you're looking this is just through the agents looking at your home servers. It's not actually out in the cloud.
Correct.
You're tying back in securely to your home servers.
Correct. So when you're synchronizing data off all of these, if I go back to my workspaces, my internet is dying. When I go to my different workspaces, all the data that I see in each one of those folders, that is the current version of those documents because it's out there on the server. Everybody that sees them sees the same thing. So when you update a document, it's the most current version. You don't have to worry about which version is correct, which do I have the right thing. Do your sales teams or your mobile employees, do they have access to the right piece of data, the right version of data? If it's synchronizing to any one of their devices, they've got the latest and greatest version. They've got the latest edition of whatever it is that they're working with.
And these are two different products, correct?
Yeah, we actually have 9 different products that we sell. So let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. So when I look at the different products that we have for availability, this is, I really don't like the way this thing is killing my monitor. Oh, come on. All right. Redoes my screen. No, it's not going to. All right, so what it's showing you here, this is the actual Data Advantage product that will allow you to see everything. So when we think about Data Advantage, and I apologize, the screen is really skewed, so it's kind of hard. There's actually a third window pane on the side. Let me do this. Let's see if I can resize this thing to a little bit better.
That's one of the things you don't do back.
All right, so here on the left-hand side, I'm pulling in all of your users and groups from every user repository that you have. LDAP, NIS, Active Directory, local server account, SharePoint, Exchange, Directory Service. It's all brought in here. You can see where the users have come from, whether it's Linux and Unix, Windows, whatever the case is. In the center, you're seeing all the different systems that you're monitoring. On the right-hand side, this is where our recommendations come from. So if I'm looking at this, I can go down inside of any one of these and see all the different systems, see the different drives that are out there, the different environments. If I double-click on any one of those, it shows you, here's what it is. This is our Data Advantage product. So there's Data Advantage for Windows, Data Advantage for SharePoint, for Exchange, for Linux and Unix, and for directory services. Along with that, we have a product. Close the right window. Along with that, we have a product called Data Anywhere, which captures and finds all of your sensitive data. So when we talk about your sensitive data, we're talking about your credit card numbers, social security numbers, anything that you find. When we look at that, we're able to actually build rules to allow you to search for the data based on whatever it is that you deem sensitive in your environment. So it's everything from a free text string search using regular expressions. Do you know what a regular expression is? Okay, so it's got regular expressions that will help you identify different code strokes. You've got a dictionary import of terms, file name, file type, file size, the author of documents, keywords, dates of modification or creation. I can search on any of that information and find specific data inside your semi-structured and unstructured data. Okay? Once we find that data, then we're going to identify it by showing you here on the right-hand side. We show you all of the different rules that were hit, and then in the center under violation count, we show you the total number of instances of sensitive data that were found. So it helps you identify, really where is the sensitive data. We'll let you do an excerpt view of that document to try and figure out, is this a true find or is it a false positive? Okay. Along with that, in these products, we also have, as I mentioned, you'll see like right here, this is the data transport engine rules set up for automatic data migration. So if you have data where lots of stuff is stored, you want to set some rules up so that if it meets a certain criteria, it moves that data out of the way or it locks it down or whatever the case is. You can just right click on any folder. I'll do one up here so it actually shows it better. And you can copy data from, copy data to. So it'll allow you to go through and look at all the different functionality here so you can create those. You can create the different levels of user activity. You can go in and if you're going to migrate data from one location to another, let's say you're doing Windows to Windows, it's pretty straightforward. But if you're doing Windows to SharePoint, do you know what permissions in Windows equate to in permissions in SharePoint? And vice versa. We do, and we'll help do that migration for you. You don't have to think about it. Okay? So we'll do that migration. So as you're looking at this, you're doing your permissions mapping. We can choose whatever product you've got and say, okay, I'm going to do Windows to a SharePoint 2010, and these are the mappings of the permissions, so we know that when it maps over, it's going to be exactly what you want it to be. Now, you may have data out there that the permissions are all messed up. That's okay. Say, I don't care what's out there. When it gets migrated, this is the permission set and the access that I want to be there once it's migrated. Make sense? So you can control all of that. That's one of our products. The final product is a product we call data privilege. Data privilege, what that is the ability for you to, and I don't think this is going to let me see, oh, I actually closed the window. What data privilege will do for you is allow you to see the different functionality out there as it relates to a data owner. So in other words, if you have someone in your organization that is a data owner, they're responsible for data and they have to do those automated entitlement reviews and so on. What we'll do is we give them entitlement reviews. They get an email saying that they've got an entitlement review, something that needs to be looked at and reviewed. And what this will do is it sends an email to them letting them know what's out there. And then it will send them a list. Here's the people who have access to your data. The red X's, remember we were talking about those as recommendations. We said these people don't use data the same way, so do they really need it? We'll show it to them and let them see that information. So it lets them make that decision. Once they choose in here and say, I don't want them to be part of my data anymore, immediately the software will remove that person's access from that data. Okay? On the flip side of it, in data privilege, we give you the ability to do full workflow authentication and validation of user access requests. So if you have somebody that needs access to data, wants to be able to get into data, be able to get access to different systems, how do you do it today? Who do they talk to if somebody says, I need access to this folder? How do you validate they should be allowed to have it?
Question.
Yeah, question. Question.
At the moment, they fill out an access request form, IT
Okay.
and security, analyze it, and approve it.
Okay. So what we do is your existing processes that are in place today, we take that and we wrap our software around that. We don't ask you to wrap your process around us. We wrap around your existing process. However many layers of approval have to be taking place, they are allowed to do that. For instance, you can go in and get as granular as saying, okay, before David can ask for access to your data, David's boss has to approve that as being a valid request in the first place. Then it goes off to the data owner and says, can this person have access to your data? You may say, well, okay, the data owner can approve it, but I don't want him to give the access. So then what will happen is it will forward it on to IT or security or whoever to validate that, yes, what they're saying is valid, I'll let them do this. Once you check mark that, the access is provisioned right there by the software. It already does it for you. You can set an expiration date and say, okay, I know this person's only there for a few days, so I only want them to have that access for 3 or 4 days. At the end of that 3 or 4 days, if no one says to do otherwise, the software removes their access and locks it back down. Make sense? So there's 9 different products that we sell. If you guys are interested, we can set you up with a free 30-day evaluation of the software. It takes about 90 minutes to install the software. Once the software is installed, within usually 10 to 15 minutes, we've got live actionable data that you can start working with.
You typically price your software, and it's been a while since, I think it was last year we demoed this. And when you typically price the software, do you price it as a suite of a few products blended in, or is it?
No, each product is priced individually. So if you want Windows or you want SharePoint or you want whatever else, it's priced by user, by product. So you said about 170 some employees. So how many of those employees are data users? All of them? 75% of them?
Wait. Well, I mean, if you talk about they have access to shared servers, then yeah, I mean, everybody has access to something.
Well, I mean, for instance, we have customers that have 10,000 employees, but 4,000 of them are factory workers that never touch a computer. So we're not going to make them buy a license for those 4,000 that they don't even never touch data.
All of our, we're very data driven, so it would be.
So let's say I think our license for you would end up being like a 200 user or 250 user license. So they would prorate it based on a total number of people, but it's at that license level. And it would be, let's say you want Windows auditing first. Okay, so we'll do DA for Windows for 250 users down to 174 or whatever you said the number was. So it'd be that number what they would license you for, and it would be on that product. Then if you wanted to add in Exchange, do you have Exchange? Do you have SharePoint?
No.
Do you have Linux and Unix? No. Do you have a need for sensitive data identification and classification?
Probably that would be one of the key things.
Okay, so we would probably license you for data classification framework, for Windows, and for Exchange. Those three products. Now, reality is data privilege. It's a great product, but most people don't do it until phase 2, usually the year after they bought the first couple of products, because it's a culture change. People doing things a different way is a big shift for any company, and we find out of the 9 products in the region that I'm responsible for, which is Michigan or Minnesota to Michigan down to Missouri all the way to Kentucky and Western PA. All that area is my responsibility. We've only got one customer that has 8 of the 9 products. Everybody else will buy 1 or 2 or 3, and then they may add one product, because some people don't have Unix and Linux where there's actual users touching it. They may have Unix and Linux, but users aren't touching that data, so there's no reason to have the Unix and Linux module. Some people don't have SharePoint, or they don't need the DCF data classification product. So there's different levels of products that you'll get. What I would recommend is go through an evaluation with us. We don't do an evaluation like everybody else does. We don't drop the software at your door and say, best of luck, see you in 30 days. We actually go through a training session where my local SE that would work with you, where are you guys located at?
Danville.
Okay. So it would be, right now it's going to be Jeremy Milton, SE that works for me that would work in this area. I just hired a new SE that starts on Monday. I would not put him into the mix yet because he's got to be trained yet. But Jeremy Milton would work with you. And basically what he's going to do is every week they do a training session with you. They do health checks to make sure the software is doing what it should be doing and working and giving you the results that you're looking for. They show you how to do forensic auditing. They show you how to do reporting, how to do statistics, analysis, how to do the data classification, how to actually go through and use each of the different products that you're interested in. So at this point, I would recommend do an evaluation. It doesn't cost you anything. Worst case scenario, you decide not to go forward. Worst case scenario, you get a free audit. Can't hurt. With that, put in DA for Windows, put in data classification, put in DA for Exchange. Now, how many IT admins are there in your company? You. Okay. How many people have access to the controls in IT? Being able to set up a user, create users, change permissions.
About 3.
Okay. Are there concerns with somebody doing something that you're not aware of?
Of course.
Okay. If there are concerns, then I would recommend taking a look at the directory services module. What that does, different from the Windows module, is it looks at directory services. If anybody adds someone to a group, removes someone from a group, changes permissions, creates an AD object, deletes an AD object, moves it, does anything with inside of that side of it, you'll get alerted, you'll get notified, you'll see all those events as well. What I would recommend is put it in products that make sense. Look at it. From there you can evaluate, okay, this is important to me. This is nice to have, but it's not as important to me. This is important, but financially, I'll be candid with you, we're not cheap.
No, I know, that's why I'm asking.
From that perspective, most of our customers, what they'll end up doing is they'll maybe buy, let's say, DA for Windows, and they want, let's say, in your case, they want Windows, they want Exchange, they'd like to have DCF. Directory services, it's nice to have, but it's not critical. Okay, so we talk to the sales rep and say, okay, get a quote for DA for Windows, get a quote for Exchange, and ask them if they'd be willing to give you 12 months of data classification at no cost. And then after the end of the 12 months, if you keep it, you pay for it. You buy it at that point. But you get to use it for a year with no cost. They do that all the time. So it gives you an opportunity to get the products that you need without having to rush into it. The one thing that I will tell you, we know for a fact that no company that buys the Varonis products have a bucket of cash waiting for us to call on them. It's not there. We're chasing discretionary dollars. So they'll work with you. They do term licensing, they'll do whatever the case is to help you get down that path. But the first step will help you build the business ROI. We'll help you build the business justification documents and have to go to the executives to get the approvals. We'll help you do that. The reason we help you is because that's going to help us get the sale. So it makes sense for us to help you. But none of it is going to work until you've actually seen it in your environment. That's why we push so hard for an evaluation, because once they see it with their own data, their own information, it's hard for those executives to say that it's not something that they can use.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Mark Hoffman is the one that's been contacting me.
Yeah, he's at the booth.
Oh, he's at the booth. I've never met him, so
yeah, let's walk over there.
Except for consistent emails.
He's doing his job.